Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon. It's International Fun at Work Day. And here to make work more fun is...
Phil and Frank. Who else? What, you thought
Who else?
Chris Rock was going to be here? Will Smith? It's me. I know you were hoping.
You had to go there, didn't you? You couldn't resist.
That was New York fan versus a Philly fan, by the way. Because you know Chris Rock goes to all those nicknames.
Yeah, I like everything about Chris, maybe except that whole New York thing. Welcome to PTI. Tony almost worked the whole week, but here to close for him is our great friend and our own closer, Mr. Frank Isola.
Wow. Ah, nice. They still cheer. I'm still watching for a minute.
We start with a stunner of a story coming out of the Final Four. Coach Mike Krzyzewski, who planned to retire at the end of the season, will step aside effective immediately and turn his Duke team over to Lieutenant and soon-to-be head coach Jon Scheyer to coach the Blue Devils in tomorrow's game against North Carolina. Coach K says he wants his team to play without the pressure of having to deliver for his legacy. And he also wants to give Scheyer the experience of coaching in and potentially winning in the brightest of spotlights. Frank, does Coach K's massive decision make sense to you?
It really doesn't. And when I heard this in the newsroom, it absolutely stopped me in my tracks. And I'm thinking, Mike Krzyzewski actually did the impossible. He actually put more pressure on those young players now to win the tournament for him. And then I started thinking, maybe there's even something more sinister at work. And with all due respect, I know he's a Chicago guy. I know he's a West Point guy. I know he's a friend of the program with you and Tony. But I'm thinking he must believe North Carolina already ended my run at Cameron Indoor Stadium with a loss. I'm 50-49 lifetime against Carolina. I am not going out with a loss to North Carolina. I think that's what's behind this, that he did not want to lose to North Carolina. Shame on him for something like this.
You think a competitor like Mike Krzyzewski,
why is he walking away?
Maybe the greatest, certainly the second greatest coach in this sport of all time, is worried about that? I think this is completely selfless. He's looking at one, the team, and two, the lieutenant that he has elevated essentially. I'm sure Duke signed off on this to Jon Scheyer, another Chicagoan, by the way. Come on, Frank. I mean, this should take a lot of the pressure. Those kids should be able to just sort of flex. By the time we get to the national semifinal tomorrow night, they should feel less pressure. And look, if Scheyer wins this game, look how he starts off. The toughest thing to do in college basketball is follow a legend. We know that going back to John Wooden. But he won't have to do that if he has a championship. I'm just saying.
Mike, when you get to this game, think about the coaches in here. Bill Self, you got Jay Wright. The one thing they have is experience on the bench. Now you're taking that away from them. How can you think that that's a good move? You don't believe that.
He could be in the AirPods, talking to Scheyer. Should you tell him or should I?
You do it. You're the one that put me up to it. You tell everybody.
April Fools.
April Fools.
April Fools, you silly
Mike
geese.
Made me do it, Coach K.
We had to do it. We had to do it. Luckily,
Point.
being a Chicagoan, I might get let off the hook if Coach K, who does watch sometimes, sees this. I think he'll let me off the hook. He wouldn't let you off the hook. He knows you're a New Yorker. He knows everything.
All right. Let's go back to the real world and let's move to the NBA and the Bucks winning their second big game of the week. Giannis Antetokounmpo brilliant last night, 44, 14, and 6 to beat Brooklyn in overtime. Kevin Durant had a chance to win the game at the buzzer, but his turnaround was just short. Mike, have the Bucks' victories over the Nets and Sixers this week catapulted them into your favorites in the East?
Maybe, Frank, but the problem is, and I know they've gone on this run where they've beaten pretty much everybody in their path already in the last month. We're talking Miami in there, Boston. If the Celtics are healthy by that second round and they get Robert Williams back in there defensively, the best center, even as good, at least, if not better than Rudy Gobert for much of the season, certainly since January.
He's been great.
I'm still tempted to go with the Celtics in that spot if Robert Williams is in there and is himself. So look, Giannis has taken a jump to me. Talk about catapult. I just said like 3 days ago he was a distant third for MVP, and I have a vote. Now I'm going, wait a minute, Holmes.
I'm the same way.
Distant third, my butt, right? So I don't know that I want to say favorite. Frank, it's hard for me to separate those four teams night to night based on who won a big game that night. Milwaukee has certainly done that. There's no reason to doubt them as sitting champions. But I'm looking at the Celtics, and I picked the Heat at the beginning of the year. I don't want to go away from that just yet either.
All right, I was at the game last night in Brooklyn, and that was a great regular season game. You know, in the fourth quarter, they lose Chris Middleton on a flagrant 2. Hard foul on Bruce Brown. They review it. He's out of the game. Milwaukee goes down by 9. They're down 7 with 2:14 to go in the game, and they find a way to tie it up. Giannis hadn't made a 3 all night. He hits one 18 seconds ago. Then Kevin Durant has a chance to win it, misses the shot, just like last year in Game 7, and then the game goes to overtime. Then in overtime, Giannis, who the possession before had missed a couple of free throws, what does he do with 3 seconds left? He makes both. Mike, there's a toughness about this team, and afterwards, the Brooklyn Nets, Kyrie talked about it, Kevin Durant, they were upset about how physical Milwaukee was in this game. There was a hard foul where Giannis tried to take a charge on Kyrie Irving. Wes Matthews fouled Kevin Durant, and I started thinking about it. It's almost as if some teams are insulted by the fact that the Milwaukee Bucks play hard all the time. You tell me, why is it that the Phoenix Suns and the Milwaukee Bucks, 2 teams that were in the finals, take the regular season so seriously? And they come out every night and compete. And for that reason and that leadership in a game that they had no business winning last night.
Yeah.
Down 7, 2 minutes ago, Middleton's out. They find a way to win.
Frank, let me put a period on this discussion. Giannis had 2 flaws, right? The lack of a jump shot wherever you wanted it to be from, inside the arc or outside of it, just a couple of years ago when they lost to Toronto. And he couldn't hit his free throws. At the beginning of the playoffs last year, they're counting the seconds to see if he can shoot them before 10 seconds are up.
Guy.
Now he's going to the line. He's plus 70%. He's doing he has attacked and addressed the 2 weaknesses that he had in his game. He's done it publicly. He's been unafraid. How do you not root for Antetokounmpo? Seriously.
He's the best. And Mike, by the way, he needed 40 points last night to pass Kareem on the all-time scoring list for the Milwaukee Bucks. He obviously was going to get the record. He needed 40. He hit 40 on the 3-pointer that sent the game into overtime. Pretty impressive.
Lights are bright, man. He is getting it done. Let's go from the top of one playoff race to the bottom of the other. The Lakers have once again fallen just out of the Western Conference seedings after losing to the Jazz in Utah last night. LeBron and Anthony Davis both missed that game, but both reportedly will play tonight at home against the Pelicans, who are 2 games ahead of the Lakers. Frank, is the Lakers' season on the line tonight?
Absolutely it is. If they lose tonight, now they're 3 back, so the best they can do is 10th place, which means you're playing both play-in games on the road to get a chance to play the Phoenix Suns. And I'm listening to Shaq and Dwayne Wade last night saying, I can see the Lakers getting healthy, going on a run. Guys, they have to play the Phoenix Suns. The best they can do is finish 8th out of the play-in tournament and face Phoenix. And I got a big-time bone to pick with you. About 10 days ago, LeBron comes out and saying he's having the time of his life. He's 14 games under 500, time of his life. You tell me, your guy's Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, if he was 1 game under 500, is he saying he's having the time of his life? So you tell me tonight, 14 games under. Come on.
If you listen to me, in that same sentence or the same paragraph, I said I was going to stop, at least momentarily, defining everything LeBron said by the comparison to Michael Jordan. I said that because, yes, Michael would be miserable. Miserable. 1 loss. He could never go through this like LeBron where he's sipping red wine and saying, I'm having the time of my life. But I'm not going to compare him to Michael. They're 2 different people, Frank. You know they are.
Mike,
look, I'm going to tell you this.
If Kobe Bryant, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Tim Duncan, if they were a game under 500, are they saying that? Thank
miserable,
you.
Frank.
And so
they're
is
not
LeBron.
him.
He's not being truthful.
That's also why you've never heard me call him the GOAT, ever. As great as LeBron is, and he's one of no lower than the 5th greatest player of all time, and certainly in the top 5, and I don't call him the GOAT. And that's one of the reasons why. Their personalities, to me, are so driven and so obsessive. I just happen to believe in that road more. And all those guys you mentioned the club. I mean, if we were old enough, we'd throw Bill Russell in there too. But Frank, the Lakers stink, all right? And with all due respect to Shaq and D. Wade, they played. Does Shaq think that the Shaq Kobe Lakers are going to be taking on New Orleans tonight?
Exactly.
No, these aren't one of Shaq's teams. These aren't the teams that Dwayne Wade had to play against and get through. It's not that. These Lakers are disengaged. They look like they barely want to be there. They're down 25 points in almost every game. And let me just say this. If they somehow got to the 8th seed, they wouldn't get a game off the Suns.
I don't think
and
so
if they
either.
get to the 7th seed, they're not getting a game.
They're not getting
they're
to
not
the
getting
7.
a quarter off Memphis.
They're not getting to 7,
I'll go
Mike.
to
That's the
Vegas
thing.
on that.
They still have to play Phoenix. They got to play Denver. They got to play the Warriors. That's why this game is so important tonight.
A run back to the locker room to get to the plane to Cancun. Let's take a break. But coming up, will the rivalry with North Carolina really mean nothing to Coach K tomorrow night? We're going to ask Jay Billis.
We'll also ask him about the Italian. Duke Paolo Banchero has played his way into the top pick in the NBA draft. Never too early to talk about the NBA draft.
Never. I don't want to hear about the Lakers. And as soon as they get eliminated, whenever that is, no more.
14 games under 500. A LeBron James.
Time to dig into tomorrow's men's Final Four with our great friend Jay Billis. Of course, Jay is always at a game, even now. Jay, you know we're going to start, of course, with North Carolina and Duke. Coach K said a couple of days ago that the rivalry, the North Carolina rivalry, relative to the Final Four, is silly stuff. Is that how you see this going in, having been part of this rivalry?
Well, you kind of wonder, is this about the national championship or is it about beating your rival? I mean, for fans, it's about beating your rival. But I've asked both Duke and Carolina fans that have come up to me talking about the game, saying, if you win the game and lose the championship game, how are you going to feel about it then? I think for the players, there's a lot of talk around the game and a ton of hype. We're really good at that. We're really good at hype, and everybody wants to see it, and I'm one of them. But I kind of admire and envy Kansas and Villanova a little bit because they're going to play in the prelim and then let the Hatfields and McCoys play it out, and they'll take a swing at them on Monday night and say, go ahead, wear yourselves out, play 3 overtimes and have your rivalry game, and we'll play it for the title on Monday night. It's got kind of a 1983 feel to it when Houston and Louisville played in the semis, and the Doctors of Dunk against Phi Slama Jama, and then Georgia and NC State played in the game that nobody cared about. And then NC State won the title. I mean, who knows what's going to happen, but the Duke-Carolina thing is dominating the landscape right now.
Yeah, that was a classic game back in '83. Jay, I want to ask you about a player on that Duke roster. I've fallen in love with this guy, not just because he's Italian. Paolo Banchero, he has played so well in the tournament. In your opinion, has he moved himself up into the top pick of the NBA draft?
Well, he was right there anyway. I think Jabari Smith of Auburn and Chet Holmgren of Gonzaga, those 3 have been in the mix for the #1 pick. And, I don't want to say it's a, eye of the beholder thing because all of them are different. But Banchero's 6'10", he's 255. And when he gets away from playing finesse ball, which he can do, and plays power basketball, there's no one guy that can guard him. And that's going to be, Frank, the challenge for Carolina is they don't really have anybody to guard him one-on-one. So if they put Brady Manick on him, Banchero's going to go after him. It'll be an isolation fest. Leaky Black did a good job on him in Durham when they played. Actually, Hubert Davis tried Armando Bacot on him in Chapel Hill, and Bacot picked up a couple fouls, and it was really game-changing. But Duke has been the best team in the tournament. They've been the most efficient. They've scored the most points in the paint. And then Mark Williams, in addition to Banchero and Jeremy Roach and the others, Mark Williams has been a game changer with his shot blocking. So Carolina's got to get him away from the rim and get him out guarding a bunch of ball screens to get him out of the lane.
Jay, you mentioned North Carolina. They weren't even ranked for much of the year. Why are they so much better now?
Well, their guard play has gotten better. R.J. Davis took over at the point for most of the possessions, and he's been really efficient. They've got 3 guys that can really knock down threes. Davis, Caleb Love, and Brady Manick, who's 6'10", and has scored more points in this tournament than anybody else. He's averaging 22. And then they've got Armando Bacot, who's been the most consistent big guy in the country. Even Oscar Tshiebwe doesn't have 29 double-doubles, and that's what Bacot's got. But the problem for Carolina is, one, the matchup with Banchero, but also they are not a deep team. So if Duke can get into their bench, get 1 or 2 players having to deal with fouls a little bit, that really gives Duke an advantage because Duke's deeper and Duke has more pros. I mean, they're the most talented team. And if you play count the pros, Duke's got the most.
Jay, we'll let you go after this. Oh, wait, there is another game Kansas and Villanova are playing as well. And as you know already, Villanova's not the deepest team in the world, and they lose Justin Moore. How much do you think that specific thing is going to be a factor in that game?
You know, Michael, losing Justin Moore is debilitating for Villanova. He's their second leading scorer, second leading shot maker from three, and I think their best defender along with Jermaine Samuels. So they're going to have to go with an iron five. Their starting five is going to have to play basically the whole game. They may get spot minutes from Chris Arcidiacono or Brian Antoine or Jordan Longino, something like that, but they're going to have to slow the game down. And since Kansas switches a lot of things, it's going to be interesting who guards Colin Gillespie. Can they get those back downs into the post? Then can Gillespie take advantage of them in pick and rolls? One thing that needs to be kept in mind is Villanova is a great free throw shooting team. They shoot 83% from the line, 86% in the tournament. In a close game, that can be the difference. They do not miss free throws. It's going to be a slow-paced game because Villanova can slow it down, and it's going to be half court. So Kansas has to run their half-court offense with some speed, and if they get a switch, I think they have to go after Eric Dixon. That's what UCLA did to him earlier in the year. But if people think it's going to be a walk for Kansas because Justin Moore is out, it is not. It's going to be a slow, deliberate fist fight, and Villanova can win those games.
Jay, thanks so much. Frank, don't you feel educated now? Don't you feel like we know what the heck is going on? You can see Jay Billis on College Game Day's 4-hour pregame show tomorrow. My God, that's like the Super Bowl. At 2 Eastern on ESPN. Then again at 7 p.m. Monday night prior to the national championship game. Let's take one last break, but still to come. The women's Final Four is tonight, and we will have predictions.
Also, we'll review today's World Cup draw. Is the U.S. in a favorable spot? I love the fact that Jay has his own cheerleading team. That's how big time he is.
Jay is the college, he's the college basketball version of Cal Ripken. No one sees more college basketball. Time to get happy, people. Happy 57th birthday, Mark Jackson. A New Yorker for you, Frank.
Yeah.
Our ESPN analyst was born in Queens and then came to national prominence as a point guard for the St. John's team that also featured Chris Mullin, Walter Berry, Bill Winnington, went to the Final Four. He stayed in New York when the Knicks made him the 18th overall pick in 1987. He thrived under Rick Pitino, winning Rookie of the Year, then became an All-Star in his second season. Jackson later led the Clippers to the playoffs under Larry Brown, and then was a fixture on those terrific Pacer teams of the mid and late 1990s under both Larry Brown and Larry Bird. He is fifth, Mark Jackson is, all-time on the NBA assists list.
The consummate New York City point guard. I still give Mark a hard time. We all heard about him in high school. He came to play my high school team in a scrimmage. I went to the game. Mark couldn't play. He was hurt. I said, you are the godfather of load management. By the way, Mark should be coaching in the NBA. Hopefully he gets a gig.
He should be coaching if he wants to coach in the NBA. I like having him on our side. I really do.
Yeah.
Happy anniversary to Villanova. On this day 37 years ago, 8-seed Villanova shocked #1 seed and overwhelming favorite Georgetown 66-64 to win the NCAA championship. The defending champs had been mowing people down behind Patrick Ewing, but Villanova shot 79% from the field for the game, 90%, 9 of 10 in the second half. There were no three-pointers then, boys and girls, to pull off the upset. You talk about a short bench. 3 Villanova starters played all 40. Most outstanding player Ed Pinckney played 37, Harold Jensen 34. Raleigh Massimino's team had finished the regular season just 19-10, but 5 of those losses had come at the hands of the #1 or #2 teams in the country, Georgetown or St. John's. This team remains the lowest seed ever to win the title and maybe the most fascinating champion.
You know, while you're signing autographs in the green room, I actually called up Ed Pinckney today. He says he gets a lot of calls on this day for the anniversary. In fact, he's meeting up with his ex-teammates down in New Orleans this weekend. He did say if the shot clock was in play back then, he says, you know what, Georgetown probably beats us by 40 because they would have picked up the tempo, obviously.
Yeah, but by the rules that existed, Villanova was just great.
No
and they
three,
played
no
Georgetown tight twice in the regular season.
That's right.
Happy trails to the wait for the World Cup draw. It happened earlier today with Team USA drawing Group B, whatever that means. That places it with England, Iran, and either Ukraine, Scotland, or Wales. U.S. coach Greg Berhalter said, quote, overall pleased with the group and excited to get started, close quote. What else are you going to say? Frank, you're our PTI soccer expert. Your thoughts? on the draw for the U.S. team and the rest of the field.
What a great week for the U.S. We qualify, and then we get that draw. That's something where we should advance out of the group. England, we have a history with them. In 2010, we did tie 1-1. Iran will be interesting because we know the diplomatic relations between the two countries. We could get Wales, though. Be careful. Gareth Bale, one of the best players in the world, is the star for Wales. So Wales, Ukraine, or Scotland, the team you don't want to face is Wales.
You're breaking it down. Wow. One omission. Defending Masters champ Hideki Matsuyama withdrew from the Valero Texas Open with an ongoing neck issue. Let's jump to the big finish. We're running out of show. Jacob deGrom felt tightness in his right shoulder. Had an MRI this morning. Frank, your thoughts?
This is big. Jeff Passan saying he could be out at least a month. That stinks. The Dodgers traded outfielder A.J. Pollock to the White Sox for closer Craig Kimbrell. Who got the better of that?
The White Sox didn't get rid of Liam Hendricks. They still got a big-time closer. Austin Matthews of the Maple Leafs scored his league-leading 50th last night. 50. Big deal?
30 goals is a big deal. 50 is huge. Naomi Osaka reached tomorrow's final of the Miami Open. Your reaction?
Big and important development for tennis as a whole. Last one. Women's Final Four tonight, Frank. Who you got?
South Carolina, Stanford. You guys did a great job with Gino Auriemma, but Stanford's got my girl, Haley Jones, the Draymond Green of women's college basketball. We're out of time. Thanks for watching. I'm Frank Isola.
And I'm Mike Wilbon. Have a great weekend, Knuckleheads. You can catch the PTI podcast on the ESPN app or Apple Podcasts. I got South Carolina, Stanford, too. We better not run into Gino anytime soon.
That was a good interview, though. Excellent.